The really big downside to a movie that's really about being quiet, no one else in the theater is really being that quiet either.
Yes, that is a rather unfortunate circumstance that we had to deal with, especially in this movie. Lots of
Well,
gum smacking.
well, at least the movie theaters are opening back up now gradually. I mean, our theater just opened up 7 days a week instead of 3 days a week. So, hi everyone, welcome to Anchor Reviews on episode after the credits on Anchor Reviews. This is Tyler from Anchor Reviews.
And Stephen Lawson, from the corresponding channel with the same name on YouTube.
Yes, and this is a review on Quiet Place Part 2. Now, this movie, I believe, was supposed to come out last year, I think in April. And then, because like everything else was going on, it got delayed like many other movies all the way to September of this year. But then it got moved forward to Memorial Day weekend of this year, and, a lot sooner. And it really shows how the movie theaters are reopening. This is probably the biggest auditorium I've seen a movie theater, even more so than Godzilla vs. Kong. There are more people in here. And seeing the demographic, there's a lot of like teen people, and I'm surprised there's a lot of like teenage girls in the auditorium. And I jokingly said, Steven, is this a Quiet Place Part 2 or a One Direction concert video?
Yep.
And well, then again, people were like, hey, 2013 call, they want their joke back. um, but then I was kind of worried because I was thinking to myself, are we in the wrong auditorium? Because that Corella movie comes out this weekend too. So I was concerned maybe that could be the case too.
Right.
Yes, I mean, speaking of, I think I haven't seen that movie, but I believe Emma Stone. I mean, she's a good actress, but I think Elizabeth Debicki would have been better as Cruella de Vil because she's much taller. That's the one you described as a giraffe and a half from
Yeah,
Tenant.
basically. Yeah, and it's terrible. I'm forgetting Emma. She just does not look the part. Like maybe just in the eyes, but that's it. Everything else to me is like you're way too young for this.
Yeah, and when I hear her laugh in the trailer, I thought that scene from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and her and Andrew Garfield's character were kind of making some banter and she was doing some kind of laugh in that.
Yeah.
All right, so but people clicked on this video for A Quiet Place Part 2, not Cruella. But anyways, so A Quiet Place Part 2 takes place, well, not exactly immediately after the events of the last one because there is a prologue scene that shows John Krasinski in the movie where we see what happened when these monsters started attacking. It's a pretty nice scene that we have to kind of expand the lore and kind of the origin of where these monsters came from. So it picks up where the previous movie picked off on. We had Evelyn Abbott, played by Emily Blunt, is taking her kids over to a new location to try to see if anyone else is out there. And also, of course, fighting off the monsters. And they come across another man named Emmett, played by Clinton Murphy.
AKA Scarecrow.
Yep, and he's been in other Nolan movies like Inception and I don't remember what else he's been in Nolan-wise, but yeah, he's a really good actor. He actually auditioned to play Batman for Batman Begins, but ironically he got Scarecrow instead. And they interact with him. He was a friend of the father character who, spoiler, died in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they're figuring out, like, what do we do next? And the deaf girl, Reagan, played by Michelle T. Simmons. I'm sorry, I butchered that name back in their 2008 review of the first movie, and I butchered it again. I apologize. But you know me. If you've been watching this long enough, you know I'm not good with names.
You got to stay consistent for the sequel, so makes sense.
Yeah, this is like a zero budget thing going on. They got a lot more money than we do in time. But
True.
yeah, so I would say that the movie itself, in ways, is in ways, a repeat of the first movie. It does have some of the similar story beats in ways, and in fact, kind of a spoiler here, but it does kind of end similar to the first movie without really revealing too much about it. But so, what'd you think of A Quiet Place Part 2?
I thought it was a solid follow-up. I had a feeling going into this, and I even, my girlfriend and I watched this the other night in preparation for this. And I was saying to her, I wouldn't be surprised if there's actually going to be 3 and this is just sandwiched in the middle and feels kind of awkward. And I would say that it does overall serve that function. Like, it expands the knowledge we took from the end of the first one for something that can be exploited to help against whatever this is, in case you haven't seen the first one in all this time. So they take that and try to take it to a place where it can be used more advantageously. Meanwhile, the story kind of separates into two directions, following two parts of the family. So I think it was good. The beginning I thought was especially strong, like Tyler was saying with the epilogue scene. But,
Prologue.
Excuse me, prologue, yes, not epilogue. And I liked some of the kind of cryptic lore expansion that was offered in the story. I do think we learn a little bit about what is left of society afterward, kind of just through cryptic hearsay of an individual. And we get a little glimpse at what it looks like, but that was not very explored, and I would have enjoyed a little more of that coming into relevance. But at the same time, I also see how a huge function of this is you have to be quiet, so it's not like society could be bustling right now. We basically just saw one little settlement, and that was... It left implications, but wasn't adequate for my tastes. So I kind of feel like it was good. It was in the vein of the first one, but it was filler in a sense. It was filler for what comes next, which will presumably be some sort of end game of, the three parts. And that is fine. I do like the addition of this new guy. But basically, where there were some answers in the first one, this one leaves a lot of stuff to be fleshed out in a sequel, or stuff that will just be left hanging and leave us going, wait, what? So I enjoyed it for what it was worth, but I'd say a slight step down from the predecessor.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember that moment in the movie when they're trying to keep the baby quiet with the whole, gas and that sort of deal. And I was thinking to myself, Miss Blunt, there's another way to keep a baby quiet.
I'm not quite sure what you're implying here.
You know what mothers do with babies?
Oh! I'll behave. Yes.
Yeah, they'll probably jump up to rated R and that sort of thing. But I don't know if the director would allow that because it's his wife.
I was just thinking it's his wife. Maybe he'd be like, y'all see this? Y'all ain't getting none of this.
But if Michael Bay was left to his devices, which he was a producer on...
There'd be an explosion behind it, too.
Yeah. Yeah, with so many different moving angles.
The milk would just be, dripping, Slow motion.
Yeah, I thought, I did like everyone in this movie, and I thought Emily Blunt was pretty good, too, in this movie. And this was not the first horror movie I've seen her in. The first one, of course, was the 2010 remake of The Wolfman that Steve and I watched about several years ago. But what do you think of her compared to this role, acting-wise?
I honestly like her a little more in this, I think. That may be surprising to some people, but I don't know. She had more to carry in this one, where...
Literally?
Yeah, quite literally. But, she basically has to take care of a family on her own now. Again, we spoiled that mildly in the beginning, but that, she basically has more on her, and I think she carried it very well. There have been similar actors and actresses, like I think maybe War of the Worlds with
Dakota Fanning?
Yeah, Dakota Fanning. Some of those performances were a lot more questionable.
Yeah, she was annoying in that movie.
And
Jaden Smith more so when Day the Earth Stood Still.
And I definitely buy pretty much all of the performances of the main cast in this more than the humans in that movie, and there are plenty of other situations, similar films with similar situations. But ultimately, I found her performance to be pretty solid and slightly better than in The Wolfman, I think.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would say The Wolfman does have a little bit more rewatchability value just because of the body count of the movie.
Sure.
And of course its production value, but anyway, this movie itself, I mean, we later in the movie, I mean, it was kind of spoilers here now, but so later on, Clint Emmett and Reagan eventually find this island nearby, and it's cut off because they figured these monsters can't swim. So they figured, oh, this is a nice refuge and a safe area to have to be pretty much be noisy as we reasonably can be. And then a twist turns out that one of the boats that one of the monsters jumped on accidentally was able to drift ashore and then start attacking these people. And one of the people on the island, he's literally credited as Man on Island. He doesn't have a name. Is Digimon Hansu? I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's a really good actor. If you've seen him, he's really good in movies like Gladiator and Blood Diamond. But he's been in some pretty lousy movies like Furious 7 and King Arthur: Legend of the Sword.
Mm-hmm. And but
oh, yeah,
in all of them, he's played a man on the island. So
oh yeah, and yeah, and oh yeah, we can't forget Never Back Down, right. Teacher.
This kind of reminds me of the Mexican gangster in like 20 movies named Hector.
It's Victor, I think.
Either Hector or Victor, but yeah, he was in The Dark Knight and so many other movies. Just as like,
and I think End of Watch as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, his agent he told his agent, now my demand is that I gotta play a character named Victor. That's my thing. Yeah, it's just I feel like you can only get away with that kind of screenwriting if you're an established screenwriter.
Yeah.
Never have someone credited as this in your screenplay if you're trying to make it, unless you reveal what their real name is later in the script.
And talk about being typecast. Like, that guy is just forever going to be this at this point. But
yeah, I mean, at least John Krasinski has branched off from comedy into more serious roles in that.
True.
So with this movie, of course, and I remember last time we were talking about, is there going to be like a turn for comedic actors making like horror movies, like Jordan Peterson with Get Out, and I think we jokingly said maybe Kevin Hart will try to get like a serious horror role or direct a serious horror movie, and I jokingly said, what's it going to be about, like tall people and. And I jokingly called it's going to be called Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah. Could be that, or like an Invader Zim, the tallest.
Oh, and then at the end, I mean, it's very similar to the ending of like the first movie with what happens with, basically, the high-pitched sound with the hearing aid and then killing the monster. I did like how they cut back and forth between the kid, Marcus, played by Noah Jupe, and Reagan's character. Oh, Reagan, that's the character name, not the actress, I mean to say Reagan. And, they kill these monsters in that. And that moment where she's in the radio station playing that high-pitched sound, and he's also playing on his radio. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I immediately got flashbacks to?
What?
Mars Attacks.
Oh, Lord.
They figured out the Indian love song call was the weakness of the Martians. Yeah. And I love you.
Yeah, come to think of it, now I'm questioning how much of Mars Attacks just predicted this movie into existence.
Yeah. Ack. That is such an underrated movie by Tim Burton. I think it's his most misunderstood movie.
I would agree. It is real fun.
Yeah, I think kind of a hot take here, but in retrospect, I think that should have gotten a sequel and not Independence Day.
Yeah. No, I would definitely say there's some merit to that.
Oh yeah, I would take this any day over a lot of the recent Tim Burton movies, like what was that one? The one with Eva Green and she's some home of particular children. What was it called?
Oh, Miss Peta something, Miss Pedophile, Miss Pedophile's Home for Remarkable Children,
Miss Penicillin. Yeah, I mean, well, it's Eva Green, so I'm like, you can do what you want with me. But yeah, I it just reminds me of the hypocrisy of like You ever there's this show, I don't know if it's on FX or whatever, but it's with
Mhm.
Kate Mara, and she's like an older teacher, and she has like a sexual affair with this teenage boy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, there's a hypocrisy of that. How come that scene is hot, but if the genders were swapped, it's considered disgusting, and people would be protesting on the streets?
Yeah, that definitely is kind of weird. South Park has made fun of that a bunch too. How like the instant it's like a male pedophile with a little girl, it's like they'll gun him to death in the street. But I think the little brother who's like 3 to 5 of one of the main characters is doing it with the kindergarten teacher and is caught, and the police are just like, nice, nice.
Yeah, exactly. But back on track with the other Tim Burton movies forgettable that Eva Green was also in was Dark Shadows.
Oh yeah,
That was pretty generic, at least in my opinion. And a few other ones too. Oh yeah, Alice in Wonderland.
yeah.
One of the worst movies to make over $1 billion.
I think the last one I saw by him that I was like, that was pretty legit still, was 9. That was like more than a decade ago.
Wait, that was him?
I believe so.
Huh,
Or at least he produced it.
Okay.
Maybe that's what
I liked Frankenweenie. That was like an animated full-length version of his short live-action movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was enjoyable. But yeah, I mean, make Beetlejuice 2 with Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder while they're still alive.
Seriously, that's been waiting to happen too.
Yeah,
And with contemporary effects too, you could really bring it to life.
yeah, I mean, I think a while back the sequel's gonna be called Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. I think Kevin Smith was offered that or the next Superman movie at the time.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so we got really long
Really?
tangent.
Tangent.
Let's bring it on back. Okay, so for the movie, I think there's not much to say. There's not a whole lot of story that happens exactly. It's a pretty short movie too, with just an hour and 37 minutes, and that's including end credits. So, what would you give A Quiet Place Part 2, Stephen?
Well, if I had to be honest, I would probably give it something in the range of, this may be a bit harsh, but a 78 to an 81%, something in that ballpark, because it's just barely under the B grade, and it's not really C material because like it's not bad by any means, but it didn't accomplish what the first one did at least, and kind of just met expectations with not a whole lot else. Like it was suspenseful in points, and I think it was fairly well executed, but at the end of the day it was just like, yeah, it exists. So I would say something in the ballpark of a 78 to 81% with all of that in mind is probably pretty fitting. Maybe that'll change in time, but leaning more towards 81 at this point, I think.
Okay. Well, personally, I really do agree, Stephen, with this one. I mean, I do agree strongly that the opening was pretty strong, even with that one guy watching the TV with his mouth open, like, duh, in the beginning. But yeah, a lot of it did feel like they kind of repeated a little bit too much of some of the story beats from the first movie, especially the ending, kind of being a little bit just ends right there. Even the guy sitting in front of me has hands up like this when that happened. It kind of reminded me of that when you did the same thing when Carrie Fisher's character just was flying into space in The Last Jedi.
Oh, Lord, that was so cringy. I was talking with a friend about that literally 2 days ago. But
yeah, and I mean, some of it, in retrospect, thinking about right now, I do believe that this movie does feel like a combination of maybe 2 or 3 episodes of a TV show in ways, and it doesn't really feel like an actual movie itself. And I feel like if they want to do something like this, I think they should have filmed a second and third movie back to back. They really ended it on like, we can do a third movie. I think they should have dedicated to that because the first one was so successful. They easily had the time and the money to do a second and third movie, in my opinion. But there were some good performances. There was some good direction, and I would say, yeah, I mean, it's slightly disappointing from the first one, but I did enjoy it for what it was worth, especially the beginning of the movie. So as for A Quiet Place Part 2, I would give it about 2.5 stars out of 4.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And expanding upon what you're saying about a show, I definitely could see, like, there's no reason this couldn't have been a pretty high budget HBO show, and, accomplish pretty similarly to what it is in a theater, except just be a week to week series instead.
Yeah, I think it would have been a better idea if they had a movie and then they made a TV show out of it as a continuation. Because I feel like just the movie stuff feels a little bit kind of waste opportunity. The money could have been better spent on making a season of this instead of just another movie that feels just like the equivalent story wise of 2 or 3 episodes meshed into just one movie.
With no real satisfying oomph at the end, or something that feels like I'm invested in me being going to see this. On the other hand, I mean, quite frankly, I know both of us are like, please, anything to get us back in theaters, please. Like, just not drivel.
Yeah, sadly, the next Fast and Furious movie is coming up, and hopefully that's not people don't look back on that movie by saying like, "Oh, let's save the theater experience."
Oh Lord, yeah, please don't.
Yeah, I got some smart water when I went to the theater, and I said, there's sadly not enough smart water in the world to get people to wise up, not to stop seeing Fast and Furious movies.
Well, maybe they're draining the intelligence directly from their heads, and that's the issue.
Yeah, so anyway, this is Tyler from Anchor Reviews.
And Stephen Lawson from the same named channel on YouTube.
Yep, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Credits on Anchor Reviews, and we hope to make a lot more in the future. Please like and subscribe.